Hey everyone, how's it going? I think I'll wait a minute or two just so everyone can get in, but yeah, we'll be starting very soon. Hey Paula, I'm doing good. How are you? Oh, is it really early? What time is it there? Jeez, that is very early. All right, well, I guess I can introduce myself, and then people can trickle in as they come. Let's see, so it's 5:30. Over here it's 8 p.m. Yep, same in EST. Yeah, I guess I'll just start off by introducing myself. So, hi everyone, my name is Zane. I'm a new coach with MLH. I was also one of the MLH Top 50 last year. And I'm also the director of VTX, which is the flagship hackathon at Virginia Tech. We're actually coming up on our 10th anniversary this year. It's insane. So I'll definitely have to plan something special for that. But yeah, that's going to be happening in November. So that's really cool. And I have a lot of hackathon experience, supported 50 plus hackathons. So done a lot of work in this sphere. But yeah, today what I'm going to be talking about is basically my internship experience. So I interned at General Mills over the summer. I was a software developer intern, and it was a really great experience. I actually got a return full-time offer from them, which I'm planning on taking, so that's really cool. Um, but yeah, I guess I can start off by saying a little bit about what it was like. As I'm talking, feel free to mention any questions in chat, and I'll pull them up right here, and then I'll answer them. So I'm basically going to answer anything at all. So, yeah, feel free to ask anything. So, my internship started June 6th of 2022, and it ended in August. So it was around 10 weeks. And initially, General Mills wasn't really on my radar because, I mean, it's mainly known for like cereal and that kind of thing, and like Pillsbury, I guess. But they actually do make a lot of brands that I didn't know about. Like they also make Yoplait, Betty Crocker, Nature Valley, and the team that I actually ended up working on is Blue Buffalo. Yeah, they actually do a lot of such, which I wasn't entirely aware of. Was this your first internship? I had done a previous thing that was kind of like an internship. It was with a nonprofit organization where I did some computer science work, but it was virtual, and this is my first like in-person paid internship experience. Pillsbury is in the dough, yes. Yeah, so like the Pillsbury Doughboy. Yeah. Do I have any pictures? I don't know if I have any pictures, but they have. Actually, let me see if I can pull up my LinkedIn. I might have posted about it, but there's like a statue of the Pillsbury Doughboy near the elevators where I worked, and I used to like walk by the elevators every time I went into the office, and it was always really cool just seeing like the Pillsbury Doughboy on my way to work. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Um, this statue, which haunts me in my nightmares sometimes, if I'm completely honest, just because its eyes are just staring. But yeah, I also had some photos of like the elevators had the little characters on them, like the Lucky Charms guy, the Beef from Cheerios, stuff like that. Yeah. How did you land the internship? So I initially applied. I think I applied through Ripple Match or something. But I applied through there, and I got an interview. And it was basically a 3-stage interview process, where the first interview was, well, first it was just like a call, basically like, you know, getting to know me, standard phone screening. Then afterwards, I had a behavioral kind of interview. They're trying to see if there was a culture fit there. After that, I had a meeting with one of their engineers, and it was a technical interview. And then after that, it was a kind of hybrid of the two. It was a technical interview, but they also asked me some stuff just about myself in general, like those questions like, "Where do you see yourself in 10 years?" for example. So stuff like that. But yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, so my internship was 10 weeks long, and I worked on the Blue Buffalo team. So Blue Buffalo makes pet food, and I worked specifically on the Buddies team. So Buddies is an app. Just pull it up. So Buddies is an app. It's basically, think of it as like a social media for pets kind of thing. But it's also their loyalty program, so people who buy Blue Buffalo products can redeem for stuff, things like that. So this is what I work on, and I was basically working on a new feature for that for the app. See, someone's asking. Any tips for the technical interview? Um, I'd say it depends, but I think more than anything, just one, like, I think the main thing I would do is if you know that you're going to be interviewing with a specific company, contact someone from that company via like LinkedIn or something. Like literally just like cold like message or connect with them and say like, hey, like I really like your position is one that I would really like to be in one day. I have a few questions because I'm planning to interview with your company. Like, do you have a minute so we could like talk about some stuff? Like, so like, you know, some people will say no, but some people will say yes, and that's really good for kind of understanding what kind of tech you're going to be working with. You know, along with lots of other things just about the company in general. But with regards to a technical interview, it really helps you to understand like what kind of tech they are wanting you to be using. Now General Mills is like a really huge company, so they basically use everything. They have so many different sectors. So, for example, like if I, because the work I was doing was with machine learning and artificial intelligence. So the work I would do with that is mainly with Python. So you know that's obviously what I would brush up on. I would definitely use LeetCode, HackerRank, stuff like that, just to prep. And I think more than anything else, like whiteboarding interviews, as much as people hate them, myself included, sometimes. Like I think parts of it can be very good, like um, having a real life scenario where you would have to develop a solution. I think is a really like good challenge to solve. I think sometimes the way programs go about it can be a bit annoying, but overall, I think if you kind of go about it in that way and are thinking not just as like a programmer, but as like, okay, I have the technical skills to back this up. But I think more than that, they want to hear your reasoning, like why is this the solution I chose? So regardless of if you even get the answer right, I think it's more so the reasoning and the thought that you're putting in. Yeah, those would be my tips. Can you talk a bit about your profile before you landed the internship? Projects, project experiences, etc. Let me actually I haven't updated this website in a while, so it may be kind of outdated. Um, but I'm also just trying to remember the stuff I was working on. Yeah, it still has my old pictures, so it is kind of outdated. But um, yeah, in terms of tech stack, like I mentioned in the slide before, I did have gone to many hackathons, so I have a lot of experience working there and just learning in a really quick, fast-paced environment on the fly, which is very useful overall. My main like background is in data science and machine learning, mainly with like Python, but I also use stuff like Java, or really I can flex to what I'm working on. Like in the past, I've done like app development and some game development. Game development is actually how I initially got started with programming. And then in terms of project, one project I created was at Cypher VI. It was called Last Minute Meals. So basically like a meal tracking app. It actually won the grand prize, which is nice. But basically I created an app or my team and I created an app where you would take a picture of your receipt and it would upload it to your quote unquote virtual fridge. And from there, it would kind of break down the items that you had bought and it would suggest recipes to you. So this is something that I made in COVID because so many people were now cooking when they hadn't really cooked before. So I wanted to make something that would push people to cook more and allow them to make really great meals, but without them having to run their brains about like what they're gonna make. So it would suggest recipes, and then the other big part of it was sustainability. So it would recommend even more the recipes that you had for items that you had bought for like a while ago. So items that it knew were expiring soon, it'd recommend them more so. So for example, if you had like bananas that it knows you bought like more than a few days ago, it would start suggesting like banana bread, suggesting you use those. And it would also provide links on Google Maps to a nearby compost station, so you could dispose like the banana peels in a eco-friendly way. So I've worked on quite a few projects. And also as a member of VTX, so I've done a lot of leadership there with being a director. I was one of the MLH top 50, so that kind of carried some weight there. And in the past, I had worked in a software development role in a research group at Virginia Tech. And then outside of that, one thing they did like, and I think it's one of their, I guess, core values, is continuous learning. So I had gone to a quantum computing boot camp, as well as some ML boot camps in the past. So those kind of showed that I was wanting to learn more independently. I'd also mentioned some projects I was working on. So one was, like I mentioned, the fact that I was just learning more about quantum computing because I just find it really interesting personally. Like I could do a whole talk about that if we wanted to. But like to keep it short and sweet, like I think the main thing about it is just that it's so fundamentally different from classical computing. Like even down to like bits and qubits are so fundamentally different. Like they aren't even the same thing anymore. It's like a completely different landscape. I find it really interesting. But the other part is that I was working on, or I am working on, inventing a programming language. So I'm considering making something that's suited towards a specific subset of machine learning, so like natural language processing, for example, or something suited to quantum computing. So that's definitely more of a long-term goal, especially now that I'm very busy. But yeah, that's definitely something that I've liked working on, and that's something they like. So yeah, that was a bit about my technical experience beforehand. How does one determine which teams to work on at a big company and which tech stacks they use? Let's see. In terms of tech stacks, like if you have a particular tech stack you're interested in learning about, or like you know that you want to use, for example, if I go in and I know I want to use Python, like I could literally just go to a team working with ML if I know I am really interested in that, and then like I could just ask one of the team members like what kind of tech they use. Like one group that I worked with was the Box Tops digitization project. So let me see if I can just look it up. So box tops now has this thing where basically instead of like clipping out box tops individually, you can just scan your receipt and it would allocate the box tops for you. So I talked with a lot of people on that team, and they told me some of the tech that they worked with, and I thought it was really cool because I'm interested in machine learning and computer vision as well. And in terms of deciding what team you want to work on, I would say it really just depends on if you have a preference towards, like, I would ask myself questions like, do I want to work on a bigger team or a smaller team? Do I want to work on a project that's like the main initiative of that department? Or do I want to work on something more of an experimental thing? So, for example, one of the other interns who I became friends with, Ethan, he did, he was doing VR work actually. He was actually doing stuff with the metaverse and VR, and essentially working with the new technologies team there, basically creating a pitch to. So at the end of our internship, we give a pitch to the CEO and some of the senior leadership, and his pitch was basically like, should they invest in this technology? What advantages does it have? Like stuff like that. So yeah, there's stuff all across there because it is such a large company. But yeah, that's what I was just doing. Do you consider yourself more of a generalist or a specialist? Personally, I guess I consider myself a bit of both, honestly. I know that's like a weird answer, but like think I'm definitely a specialist in terms of I work with particular tech stacks. Like if I'm doing machine learning work, I'm probably going to use Python over something like R just because I have more experience with it. If I'm doing app development, I'll probably use Flutter and Dart just because that's actually what I worked with during my internship. I actually worked with quite a few technologies actually, as opposed to React Native, which React Native is fine. It's just Flutter and Dart's what I worked with. So I'd say I'm more in those kinds of areas, but I have specific technologies and frameworks in mind when I'm building those things. So yeah, as always, well, I'm going to talk some more about how my internship experience went. But as always, feel free to post any questions in chat, and I'll read them as they come. But my first day on the job was, well, it was kind of as you'd expect. It was mainly just paperwork, orientation, and stuff like that. I did get quite a bit of free swag, which was nice. I also got tons of boxes of free cereal, like this picture right here just showed how much cereal I got, which was very crazy. My first week there was essentially just me meeting the team, getting onboarded, and my team was actually really, really nice. My manager, Roman, was really welcoming. He actually didn't really I think he had an intern. I don't think he actually had an intern before, so it was definitely a new experience for him. But yeah, I mean, everyone was very welcoming. That's something I definitely liked about him, is because, like, okay, in my opinion, like, you can have theoretically, like, the best workplace in the world, but if your boss is an asshole, you're gonna have a shit time. Like, there's no other way to go about it. Like, you're not gonna have a good time if your boss isn't good. So, the fact that I had a team that I really liked and got along with was really important to me. And basically, I was given my project, which was basically to, I won't go into like super specific details, but I created a new feature for their receipt scanning, or not receipt scanning, but how you redeem products through their loyalty program. Because at the moment, how they have it is they have a QR code inside each bag of food, and so you scan that, and then you redeem the product. And there are some challenges with that they wanted me to solve by essentially shifting from that to, instead of just taking a picture of a QR code, just taking a picture of the bag of food itself. So for that, I had to do quite a bit of computer vision work, and some natural language processing as well, because I had actually created a stretch goal for myself, like outside of my like actual project, to do receipt scanning. So as opposed to take a picture of the product bag itself, kind of like box tops, just scanning the receipt itself to authenticate purchases. So yeah, that was also really cool, just because I got to see the differences and like how those things worked. In terms of tech stack, I worked with Python for the machine learning components. I worked with Google Cloud, because they're shifting a lot of this stuff to the cloud right now. So if you're interested in data engineering or data science, they have like a ton of roles open for that. So, keep an eye out. But I also used some app development technologies because Buddies is a mobile app. So I used Flutter, Dart, and Kotlin. Flutter is the framework I used. Dart is the front-end language, and Kotlin is back-end language. And that's basically the technologies I ended up working with. And it was definitely a lot, because I think most of my experience in the past had been mainly with like just doing the machine learning components, especially in like a hackathon setting. Like usually someone else would be doing like the front end stuff while I worked on the back end because of like the time constraints. But being able to do all of those things, like so essentially being a full stack developer, was actually a really cool experience. That I'm really glad that I got to have, because I learned a lot, and I also got to touch on a lot of different technologies. So it gave me a lot of great ideas for where I'm going to be placed in my full-time offer. So the full-time offer I got is with, it's a rotational program. So essentially you would do 1 year in one role and another year in another role. So for example, I could do like 1 year as a data scientist, and I could do a second year as a cloud engineer, for example. So yeah, that's basically what the offer looked like. How was the learning curve during your internship? I think at the start it was kind of overwhelming just because I kept talking to so many people. I was also just getting used to Minnesota because, fun fact, before then I had actually never flown in my life. I grew up very low income, so I didn't have that opportunity before. So it was actually my first time flying in general. Haha. But yeah, it was actually my first time just meeting so many different people. And it was a really cool experience. But In terms of a learning curve, I think at the start, yeah, I was definitely a bit overwhelmed because I was using basically a full stack um, of tech. But I think over time, I definitely got to structure things a lot better because I ended up talking with my project manager, Andrew, on the team, and he basically gave me a template of like a Word document to kind of outline for myself, and that really helped me to keep myself on track during the internship. So basically, it was actually a very detailed document. It was basically detailing for myself, like, okay, week 1, week 2, week 3, like each week, what am I expecting to accomplish? What will I have done? What will I have not done? Things like that, and identifying the scope, things like that. So that was really cool to do. I think during the middle of it, it was mainly just like banging my head against a wall. So like getting used to like utilizing these technologies in the way that they want to be to, um, because these things are going to be used on such a wide scale. Because Generalist is an international company; they have so many customers. Like Buddies itself, like the app has 350,000 plus users. So it's like definitely a large user base. So having to like refine my stuff and keep in mind all these different kinds of things um, was definitely a really cool thing. But I think overall, um, keeping to my keeping it segmented definitely helped me with that learning curve. Just because me personally, I kind of get burnt out if I'm like only doing ML stuff for like 5 weeks and I get burnt out. So I kind of switched up for like half the week I would work on the ML stuff, half the week I would like work on the app, because essentially what my outputs were from the internship was just like documenting technical requirements and things like that. Because outside of my project, they hadn't really done much with machine learning or artificial intelligence. Um, and then the other part was creating an app demo. Um, and overall just creating a presentation to the senior leadership. And I think that last part was definitely a big thing for me that had me go a bit outside of my comfort zone in terms of like doing more businessy stuff instead of tech, because having to present all this stuff to like a CEO and the senior leadership who are right under the CEO was like, it was daunting at first. But also like with how I had to think about how am I going to present all of this in 15 minutes, because that's the amount of time I had. And I think the main thing I kind of learned from that was that I needed that when I'm speaking to these kinds of people, I need to be way less technical. Because during my initial like write-ups for my presentation, I was talking about all the nitty gritty, which to me is interesting and it's important, but to those people, they have no idea what I'm talking about. Like when I say dart, they think dartboard. So they have no idea what I'm talking about to begin with. So I'm just going to lose them. So I needed to talk about the business impact. So for example, instead of talking so much about the intricacies of the app development, talking more about how I truncated 60% of the page views uh, from the loyalty process. So like reducing the number of screens you would have to get through in order to redeem your loyalty points, which in turn increases engagement and makes it easier for users overall. So saying things in that kind of way is definitely a good skill that I had to learn. And honestly, it's a really good skill in general, just because when you're going to be presenting to leadership or more businessy people when you're a developer. So that was definitely a really good skill that I got to learn. I see we got some new people here, so I'm gonna keep talking about how exactly my experience was. As always, feel free to post your questions in chat. I'm open to pretty much anything, and I'll answer them as they come. But yeah, let's see, what was I talking about before? Yep, so I worked on the Blue Buffalo team with that project. And I also just I think the other, I guess, big takeaway from my internship was just that I got to meet a really cool team of people. So so I was also interviewing with other companies at the time because like around August like is prime interview season for big tech companies, or at least most of them. So I interviewed and I actually got offers from Google and from Amazon, but I actually ended up going with General Mills full time, which I think was surprising to some people, just because when you think big tech, you kind of would think there. But honestly, there are a lot of things I valued about the company that kind of pushed me to kind of go with them, just because one, they were really flexible. Like they have a thing called work with heart, which basically means like you can work anywhere between like being fully in person and being fully remote, like, and anything in between. And that was something I really like doing because I like my work as an MLH coach and I don't want to stop doing it. But if I was working full time at like Amazon, where they pay very well, but they're gonna wring me dry, like they're gonna work me hard. Um, Compared to that, I would much rather have a more chill experience at at a company that isn't primarily tech focused, and thus wouldn't be as stressful in that way. So I could do be an MLH coach on the weekends. And yeah, in terms of, well, I guess I can talk a little bit about like how my interviews were with Google and Amazon. So Google, I believe they're both six interview rounds. So like there's like a phone screening, then kind of like a tech screening, and then a behavioral interview. And then they basically have like 4 interviews that they do all in one day. So it's pretty stressful. I slept for like a day after because I needed it. Yeah, it was definitely a lot of pressure, but that's how their interviews went. But back to what I was saying before, I definitely spoke with a lot of really cool people. So when I started at General Mills, each intern has a tech buddy and a social buddy. So my tech buddy Brian, he had actually worked on the Box Tops team before, and he also worked on the buddies team. And then my social buddy Adam, he was a data scientist. So I got to talk with them a lot about like just the company in general and learning about it. And I also liked how candid they were, because they just like were open to any kind of question. They're very transparent. Like, yeah, they were super helpful. And I think the other big part that kind of contributed to my experience being really good was the ITF. So they have an intern task force, which is basically a group of employees internally that is in charge of like curating activities for interns to do, like setting up like meetings for them with like people from across the company so they can learn stuff like that. Like we ended up doing like a scavenger hunt around Minneapolis because that's why I was working. I was in person in Minneapolis at the world headquarters there, and one of the activities was actually a scavenger hunt all around Minneapolis, so that was really fun. And then we did some other stuff. Like we did like a whirly ball tournament, which if you've never done that, it's basically like bumper carts meets lacrosse. It's kind of funny. Meets basketball, kind of, which sounds weird, but it's fun. But yeah, I think them being there definitely helped. And I think another thing that kind of pushed me towards General Mills in terms of like where I wanted to work was some of the people. So like, for example, I got to meet people who were more like me that I found. Like, one girl I met, Isabella, she's a first generation student just like me, and she also like paid for college entirely by herself, just like I do. So it was really cool, kind of seeing someone who kind of was in my situation that I got to like relate to, as opposed to like someone who like was an engineer and their parents were an engineer. Not saying there's anything wrong with that, but just that wasn't my situation, so I couldn't relate. So yeah, I think that was definitely something really cool I got to experience. But yeah, in terms of, I guess, with the project itself, I did succeed. Like I created the machine learning functionality for computer vision, identifying the product by taking a picture of it, which is really cool. And I also created an app demo of like the Buddies app and with my future working functionally in it. So yeah, so that was also really cool. My presentation went well. I mean, I figure it went well because they gave me a return offer, but people seem to like it. And yeah, I think outside of like my main work, like tech wise, another thing I'm very like passionate about, like just personally, is like diversity and inclusion initiatives. So I asked one of the people there from the kind of diversity sector of the company about the demographics of like the people who work at General Mills, and as I was looking at them, like one thing did stick out to me was that the majority of them were white. Like like to give a rough estimate, like I think around 80% of the people there were white, which is definitely like, you know, not as diverse as like a lot of other companies. But I also saw that they did a lot of things that other companies weren't doing. So like, for example, they have this Martin Luther King breakfast thing, or I forget if it's MLK or if I think it's Juneteenth. Yeah, they do a Juneteenth breakfast event every year, and they've been doing that for like 30 years. So they definitely, I think it kind of shows that they were kind of doing it before everyone, and like other companies kind of started to have to do that kind of thing. Um, and they also have employee network groups. So they have different groups for different uh, people or different employees in the company. So like they have a women in tech group, they have a black people in tech group, Hispanics. They also have like LGBTQ plus groups, which I thought was really cool because you can join either as like, you know, a member of that community or as like an ally. Um, so that was really cool just to interact with those people and kind of learn more. And but one thing I kind of wanted to do, and I think it's part of the reason that they saw that I had a lot of like value to the company is I wanted to create my own employee network group. So I'm interested in creating something either for first generation employees or for employees who face familial challenges like myself. So people who come from an abusive household, come from like a single or no parent home, or are single parents themselves. Just because I think at the moment, not specifically with General Mills, but just overall with like companies, like there's a lot of groups for specific subsets of people, which I think is great, but there aren't a ton of groups for stuff that's more invisible, that are more invisible forms of diversity. So we do have a disability network group, but outside of that, I kind of want something that kind of connects people who have like different physical forms of diversity, but they kind of share those invisible forms of diversity. So that's something that I'm definitely interested in working on. So hopefully that works out because it's definitely something I would like to do. But yeah. Oh, actually, I can show one thing. So at the end of my internship, I got some swag, but I also got this. So this is a Wheaties box that was custom made with my face on it, and also has like a bag with like an about me and that kind of thing, and nutritional facts. But yeah, this is something I was actually really excited to get because I don't know, it's not something I would have really expected. But yeah, it was really cool. I'm glad it was free though. This is like $100. Like if I were to like get one myself, so I'm glad it was free. Because otherwise I'd be like, damn, that's expensive. So yeah, I guess I can talk about some fun stuff. So like, as always, you know, put your questions in chat. I'm done to answer those, but in the meantime, I guess I can talk about some fun stuff. So one of the fun things was just exploring the fourth floor. Yeah, that is very cool. Thank you. Was exploring the fourth floor of the headquarters. So there's 10 floors in all, but the fourth floor has a lot of fun stuff that I kind of got to explore with a bunch of the other interns. So it's the sales floor. So they actually have access to like a lot of swag and other stuff. So I got to, well, one thing they have is a coffee machine, but it's like a really nice coffee machine. So like you put the pod or the packet in, whatever, and then you can make like a cappuccino, a latte, a mocha, like stuff like that, which I thought was really cool. And though I think it did get me like onto coffee, you know, which most people are anyway. So, but they also had these really interesting like syrups you could add that were really fancy. Like they had one that was like lavender, which I'd never thought of with coffee, but they had it. They had like roast. They had like toasted marshmallow, like syrup that you could put in your coffee, which it sounds like pure diabetes, but it sounds fun. They had like cinnamon bun. They had all sorts of stuff. Um, they also had a yogurt fridge. So they have one of our brands. It's called we. So they have this yogurt brand in particular called We. It's our French style yogurt brand. It's actually really good. If I could recommend it, I'd recommend the mango one or the mango one and the pineapple one are very good. I try it almost every day. But uh, back to what I was saying. Yeah, they had like a yogurt fridge. They had a bunch of snacks out every day. Like they had Muddy Buddies, like all these other snacks, which is really cool because, like for example, like Muddy Buddies. I'm not a huge fan of them personally, but they're like $5 a packet now. It's like crazy with inflation. So I just picked them up because I could. Yeah, they have a lot of other stuff. And they also have a bunch of swag on that floor. So if you ask one of the salespeople nicely, like sometimes they'll give you some swag. So I got I think I have a Gushers shirt, but I also have this. So this is a hoodie from Blue Buffalo, which is really cool. Because they actually didn't have any like standard swag, so I asked them like, "Do you have anything from my team that I work on?" And my boss was just like, "Okay, go to the company store and just expense it." And so he was like, and I was like, "He said I could get anything, so I just got a hoodie." So, and he said that was completely fine. So, you know, so that was really cool. Yeah, on to questions. What was the most challenging part of it? Huh. That's a very interesting question. I think overall, I think the most challenging part was not the technical part. The actual work was like not the hard part. It was the fun part because I like doing tech work. And it's interesting to me. I think the most challenging part was for me putting myself out there and making connections. Because me personally, I'm more of an introvert kind of person. Like I don't like talking to a lot of people. I know that makes me sound like an asshole, but I don't know. I just don't like talking to a lot of people. I like talking to hackers and people in the tech community. Um, but other than that, I think I'm a pretty like introverted person. So it was definitely a bit of a challenge having to kind of speak in meetings or like kind of like say like, okay, I'm gonna put this meeting on your calendar where I'm gonna talk to you, or like, oh, I'm interested. I want to have more people in the company know about like my project and what I'm working on because it's good to do that. So like scheduling a meeting with a bunch of people and like leading that meeting was something that I wasn't really used to. And also just like contacting different people. So like I just ended up scheduling a bunch of calls with different people around the meeting or around the company, which was really one of the most valuable things. Was like so like I met one person who was like a software developer. I met someone who was a software analyst. I met someone who was like a cloud engineer, which was really cool. So people with all different kinds of roles I was interested in. And I basically asked them like what their job was, like what they liked about the job, what they didn't like about the company, and that was always a fun question, just because I got to see their reaction. Um, because that's not like an easy question to answer. Like some people will try and dance around the question, but some people will genuinely like tell you what they think, and those are the people that I know like I can count on because they're like transparent about stuff. But yeah, it was basically just scheduling a bunch of coffee chats, quote unquote, with these people in order to put myself out there, attend like these social activities, which a lot of times I'm not a fan of, but they're definitely a good place to meet people and bond with their team. So like, for example, the first like employee event we had was it was called the Yappy Hour. So we usually have a happy hour, but this one was dog themed, so people brought their dogs. To the headquarters. Like people, like I remember the CEO brought his dog too. I think it was a corgi. But yeah, that was really funny just seeing everyone with their dogs, being very cute. Um, but yeah, um, yeah, I'd say that was probably the most challenging part. What questions did they ask in the interview? Anything coding related? I mean, yeah, definitely for the technical part of the interview, there was definitely like coding involved. So, for example, like if I was, when I kind of named some of the tech that I worked with, they kind of asked me like about that tech, like how I would try and solve like a certain type of problem. So sometimes they weren't really expecting like actual code. It was more like pseudo code, if anything. So basically, just saying like, if I was given a problem, how would I go about trying to understand that problem and kind of deciding how to approach it with the technology I had. So, for example, like I think one good example, just that I've personally seen, like as an MLH coach, because I've judged like so many projects, like hundreds of projects, because I've helped out like 50 plus hackathons. So like um, one thing was kind of using the right kind of tech for the right situation. So, for example, instead of like using a large complex neural network for solving a problem, instead just doing like more simple data analysis or much more rudimentary machine learning. Because realistically, like you're very rarely going to need like a huge amount neural network like as a solution because it's also very expensive. So kind of figuring out how much like the minimum amount of effort you can put in to solve something is very good to show just because it shows that you know how to be resourceful and how to basically save the company money, which at the end of the day they very much like. Um, but yeah, I think that's mostly how the interview went. Were you also an MLH fellow? I was actually not an MLH fellow. I got to meet some of the pod leaders though. So I went to Hackcon, which if you haven't been, it's an international event where organizers from all across the world come together and learn more about organizing hackathons and doing that kind of thing, and just meeting each other in general. And I got to meet some of the pod leaders, and actually I slept like next. I was in like the same cabin as like a few of them, like Hugo and some other people. I forget their name, but yeah, I was with a lot of the pod leaders there. But I wasn't like an MLH fellow myself. Yeah, though I will say I was talking to Swift, Swift is our CEO of the company, and he was actually interested in having me talk about like my work with General Mills to the MLH Fellowship. So if you're interested in the MLH Fellowship, you might hear from me again because he wants me to do a talk with them. So yeah, how do technical interviews compare in a company's interviewed at in terms of difficulty or expectations? Um, I think I liked General Mills' interview process more just because it was like not as like pressured. Like it felt more like I was having an actual like conversation about like my like culture fit and like my tech like skill fit, rather than just being like given a test that I was basically being expected to solve at like Google and Amazon. Which to some extent I get it because they have like hundreds of like tens of thousands of people wanting to work for their company. So they have to have some sort of like streamlined way to kind of weed out people and kind of get the actual people that they want to interview. So I definitely get that to some extent, but definitely felt more like Leak Cody, Hacker Rank questions. My Amazon interview, like one of them was literally like I think one hard question and two medium questions from Leak Code. So that's definitely something like I'm personally not a fan of, just because I hate tedious things and I hate like kind of grindy things where it's not a matter of like my skill personally. It's more about how much time can I dedicate to this thing in order to study, which when I'm paying for college all by myself is hard because I have to work full time while in college. Um, Yeah, in terms of expectations, I think it kind of met my expectations more for the most part. Some interviews with different companies were definitely longer. Yeah, I don't think there was anything kind of outside my expectations. So that was a lot of talking. Yeah, as always, say whatever you want in chat. I'm free to answer it. I may be taking a short break here, just so I'm not like talking y'all's ears off, but also giving you time to kind of think of questions. I think the last thing I'll talk about before I go on like a 5 minute break is so I work one kind of thing at the end of the internship that I thought was really cool was I talked with one of my buddies, Grayson, and uh, like one thing I'm just personally interested in is founding a nonprofit. That's just something I've always wanted to do because I grew up in a low income family, first generation, so I want to do something that could like help people like me. So one thing I wanted to do was make a nonprofit in order to uh, help people. And Grayson, who is my buddy, he actually did some nonprofit work, which actually is a lot of people, like not nonprofit work, but volunteering. Like I think the statistic they said was like 80% of people at General Mills volunteer, which was like crazy to me. Like that many people like volunteer at this company. So that was really cool to hear. But he has experience like working with a nonprofit, or I think he actually made a nonprofit, working with different companies for like donations and stuff. And one thing that because we were brainstorming like what I could kind of do because I don't have money, so I couldn't like make like a scholarship for like people in my situation to get an education. I think that's more of like a long term thing for me. So I was thinking like what other things could I do? Um, Even just like fun things to kind of like help people who are in my situation. So one thing I thought of was boom, Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So I'm actually decently big fan of Yu-Gi-Oh. I play it quite a bit. Actually have like a bunch of cards right here. But I was thinking, like when I was in elementary school, like if I'm in like a poor or lower income school, like any kind of funding they're getting, they're not putting towards games or anything like that. Nothing fun, just towards like the necessities, which makes sense. But like, I think it'd be really cool to give those people or to give the kids at those schools something fun. One, just because I think they deserve nice things, but also like games are a huge part of my life. Like, it's how I kind of made friends. Like, got out of my shell. It's a interest I found that I really liked and kind of got into as like a hobby. So it gave me something to do. Um, and yeah, I definitely wanted to bring that back to kids who were in a similar situation to the one that I was. So I kind of formulated this nonprofit that I'm working on creating, but it's essentially something that would donate games like video games, but I think more immediately like card games are probably the most effective, just because like cards are very cheap. Like some cards that we have, for example, it's crazy with card games. Like some like common cards can be like a penny each, but then like I don't know if you have like LOB Blue Eyes White Dragon that can go for like $500. So it really depends. But you have some of these cards which are like some of these common cards can be like 1 cent each. And if I were to spend $100 on buying cards, I would get 10,000 cards if I bought like only common cards and stuff like that. Like that could go a long way. So I was thinking about basically working with local card shops and kind of negotiating bulk deals with them to get like lots of common cards and basically just package them and give them back to kids like from lower income schools just because one like what do people do with cards? They trade, they play with each other. It encourages like collaboration and like making friends with people because it's you're interacting with each other. uh, and it's also just nice like because if you're young if you're not young enough, it would be something that encourages you to read. because and this is a favorite card of mine. This is a favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card of mine. It's called Endemion, the Mighty Master of Magic, and it was actually meta for a while. Like it was a meta card, so people had to learn how to play with this card and against it. And look how much text this card has. That is so much text. So if a kid gets into Yu-Gi-Oh, they're gonna learn to like to read because they're gonna have to do it. Like this is a bit of an extreme example, but like there's cards like this, so that's something I find really funny. But yeah, like I was saying, partnering with local card shops, also because like a lot of local card shops are struggling right now, just because like there's all these online retailers, and if they don't have much of an online presence, like they're definitely gonna struggle. So I was thinking like, because I'm a hackathon organizer, like I know how to organize events and like deal with sponsorship, because I was actually the lead for sponsorship 1 year. Before I was the director of VTX, I would work with card shops to be like, hey, here you have all these common cards no one wants to buy anyway because they're literally a penny. I can buy them from you in bulk, so I can give them to low income schools. And in return, I can give you brand recognition. So like putting your sponsor logos on our site, on different things that we have, stuff like that. And that'd be a really cool thing because a lot of local places, especially, really value like having like their name put out there. That's really cool to them. So yeah, that's kind of my vision for this nonprofit. It's definitely a long-term goal, but I'm really hoping I can get this running because I think it'd be really cool. And also, I just kind of like the idea of booster packs because I think there's no other feeling like opening a booster pack, which unfortunately, like a lot of people from lower income households like wouldn't get. So I kind of like the idea of like if I have a nonprofit, like making my own booster pack, like designed and everything, and having a kid open it. Like that would be like the ultimate thing for me. So yeah, it was really cool because I got to talk to Grayson about that, and he kind of helped me formulate the idea. So that was really cool of him. So yeah, that was definitely a lot of talking. Does anyone have any other questions about my internship, about my work as an MLH coach, about me being the director, about anything really? Like I'm down for whatever, honestly. Oh, nice! You were accepted into the fellowship, so hopefully I'll be seeing you in the fall when I do my talk. You kind of touched on this. Any tips on what to do when a recruiter reaches out to you, but their company isn't in your radar yet? I mean, I think honestly, just like if a recruiter is reaching out to you, I think that's a really cool thing. Especially if it's not like a spam message. Like sometimes you get like spam messages from like random companies for like a senior position when you're like in college, which is like it's obviously spam. But like if it's like an actual message from a recruiter, I'd say go for it because honestly, like having the most options available to you is really good. Like whether you are interested in actually working for that company is like regardless of that, you should still interview with them. You should still talk to them because realistically, one, it does a few things. One, it gives you experience, like with talking to people and doing interviews, like because that's not easy. So getting more experience with that is really cool, is really good. Another is just seeing what all these different interviews are like, so you have experience like doing different interviews with different companies. And another is just like leverage. So if I'm trying to get a job offer or I don't know, a raise from a different company, I can say like, oh, this company said that they wanted me for this role. Like that's a huge thing that you can use for leverage in those kinds of situations, especially for raises. So I think absolutely, my best tip is just go for it. If you don't know anything about the company, like literally just like look them up. So general mission statement. So if I don't, so like this is what I did. I don't know anything about General Mills, or like what they actually want because I see them as just a cereal company. At least that's why I did think. I'm just looking at like what do they value. So like innovation, and like another thing they value is sustainability. So they're actually doing a lot of different sustainability initiatives, which are really cool, which I actually didn't really know about. What else? Let's see. Oh, well, but yeah, just looking at their mission statement, kind of, so you can get like a grasp of what that company's about is always really good. So that's definitely the biggest thing I would recommend. All right. Anyone else have any other questions? Because I'm actually scheduled to do this for another hour, so like I'm down for anything. I could even just do random stuff if you want, because like I'm gonna be here regardless. I might even just ask questions to you all just to get the ball rolling. Like, is there anything that you're stressed about or like nervous about when it comes to internships? I think that's a really good question. I'd like to hear like everyone's like perspective on in chat. What's your favorite thing about having leadership roles in so many communities? I think part of it is just like getting to see all the sides of like how the inner workings of the things I really like work. So with like hackathons, obviously I really like seeing how the actual planning goes into everything and things like that, and being an MLH coach, obviously. And then, but there's also things like in my personal life, like I'm with this competitive Overwatch team, so I don't play at like a super high level or anything. Though some of our players do. Like I think one of our biggest players were like top 0.1% in Fortnite or something. But yeah, some of them are very talented. But I'm one of the team captains, so I think that's like a really cool experience just because I got to know everyone better. So I think my favorite part is honestly just meeting so many new people, especially with like interviews. Like for VT Hacks, I've been doing so many interviews with like different people. Um, just with like people applying to be organizers or applying for or just like sponsors and stuff. Because like we have around 20 organizers at VTX, which is quite pretty sizable actually. So that's just definitely something. It's just like meeting so many new people, especially people like freshmen and sophomores, kind of getting into this kind of stuff for the first time is really cool. What would you suggest to someone who is going to start searching for a job / internship? I think the main thing I can recommend is just getting your resume down so that one, it's readable, two, you can explain it and you like know what's on it, and three, like it showcases everything that you want through action and it's concise, so there's not like fluff. Like I think people say sometimes like they like add fluff to the resumes. Like, you have one like realistically to me like, resumes are an extremely personal thing just because it's essentially like the results of your work throughout your entire life, like your biggest accomplishments. So that's a lot to fit into like one page, and you should keep it to one page. By the way, like unless you're like a doctorate PhD person who has done a ton of research, like keep it to one page always. Just because this is one statistic I like to point out, which is the average amount of time a recruiter spends looking at your resume. Does anyone know what that amount of time is? I'm genuinely curious, like what y'all have to say, because I know the statistic. So I'm actually going to ask how long do you think a recruiter spends looking at your resume? let's see, people are saying 3.5 seconds, like a minute, 10 seconds, then 1 minute max. So the recruiter, 15 seconds. So the average amount of time is 6 seconds. It might be 6.5. Farhan, you may have a different experience if you worked in like a different like part of recruiting, but if you're at least for like General Mills and some other companies who like get so many applications that they have to weed out, it's around 6 seconds that they spend looking at your resume. So that's basically in six. I could never be a recruiter because it's like in 6 seconds you basically go through the highest all the accomplishments of this person's life and you say nah, not good enough. Like that's just soul crushing. I don't think I could do that, but I can I can stare to the void for 6 seconds. I think you could. Um, yeah. What was I saying? Yeah. Yeah. 6 seconds is not a lot of time, so you want to make sure that you get across what you can. But you usually want to kind of have the recruiter kind of formulate like their opinions of you, not just by like you saying it, but by like reading what you've actually done. So, for example, if you want the recruiter reading your resume to take away that you are a leadership oriented person that is like good at mentorship, like if that's what you want them to take away, you shouldn't just say I'm a leader, and I'm a good mentor. They shouldn't just say those things. You should have experience and present it in a way that makes them think that. So it's kind of like when people say actions speak louder than words. I think it's definitely a similar thing here. So definitely recommend. Where was the? Yeah. So I think that's definitely my number one thing is getting your resume set up, because realistically you can send it out to as many companies as you want, but I would definitely work on refining it and keeping copies of it, just so like you can kind of see your growth, and also making it readable to machines and like automation, because I know some people who like they use this really weird like format for their resumes, which like is super incompatible with resume filters, like automated resume filters. So that sometimes they don't get callbacks, but it's not because of their skills. That's because their resume isn't in a regular kind of format. It has like charts or different things like that. Like you don't want that. You want it to just be words. You want to be very consistent. So that's what I would suggest. Tell us more about your programming language. I mean, the only thing I can say that I haven't said already is, I guess I've had to do a lot of work with computer architecture, which I didn't initially expect, because realistically, there's a lot of different ways you can go about creating language. Like you could use an already created language as like a base, and so that's a lot easier. But it also depends on the use case, and that's something I've had to think about, is like, what's my goal with this? And like that's a really hard thing to think about, like what in terms of like programming languages that exist now. For example, if I want to make something for natural language processing in machine learning, like what about the programming languages that exist now is not optimal for this use case? And I want to think like, how can I do that better? That's like inventing something is very hard. So I haven't cracked it, and it's like very, it's a lot of a learning process. But like I've been doing a lot of research on like computer architecture, how like computers actually function, because like this is kind of a sidetrack, but I think it's honestly crazy how many of us like work with computer science, but if someone were to ask us about like how a computer works, like a lot of us wouldn't have like super super accurate answers, because realistically it should be something that's like everyone knows, but it's like it's such a complicated thing. Like sometimes it almost seems like magic, really. Yeah, I've been learning more about that, just because especially with like machine learning, but also with like if I want to make something suited towards quantum computing, like qubits. Like qubits are like a very low like form of storing information. So like tweaking my language so that it's more optimized down to the bits is like something like that I've definitely like had to learn more about. How do you work on getting more comfortable with your manager? It's a very good question. It's also very important just because your managers, like realistically, like the CEO or whatever, like the CEO, like can think whatever they want about you. You won't really interact with them anyway. The one person you want to make happy is your manager. No one else really matters. Because the manager is the one who decides your paycheck. They decide whether you get a job offer. They decide all of that. So if you have one person as your top priority, make it your manager. They're the one who decides all that. Um, now that doesn't mean you have to kiss their ass or anything, but you should definitely try to get to know them. Like, I would definitely leverage like, just talking with them because, like, it depends on the person, of course. But from what I've seen, like a lot of managers, like generally, like people love talking about themselves. So I would literally just ask them like, oh, like, how did you get started, like in your like career, like, what do you do, like, for hobbies, like. What's your like favorite thing you've worked on, like, and that's those kinds of special questions especially I really like. Um, is like, what's your favorite thing that you've worked on, or what's your favorite thing in general? Just because it really opens the door for people to talk about something they know they like, and it gets them to be all like happy and energetic because they're talking about something they're passionate about. So that's something I would definitely do is schedule some kind of like meeting or just like have lunch with your manager or something like that. I know it can be a bit awkward kind of doing that at first, but I think the more you do it, the more you get used to it. But yeah, those things are really, it's a really good way to do that. Your involvement is impressive. How do you manage to do so many things along with work and school? Um, well, thank you, first off. And I guess for some perspective, I kind of mentioned it, but I work like, or at least in the past, I worked full time at my university's dining center. So I was a cook, which like dining. I think in most parts of the world, dining food is known for being bad. Like actually, so at Virginia Tech, I think we're like the top one or two, like, uh, dining halls in the nation. So we actually have pretty good dining hall food. But it's hard to make. So I had to work like 40 hours a week doing that along with school. How do you manage to do so many? How do I manage to do so many things? Honestly, a lot of it is just neglecting my sleep, which isn't a good thing to do. But for me, I guess it's because it's something I have to do, not something I want to do. It kind of pushes me to do it. Because like how else am I gonna pay for college? Like I can't. I don't have anything. I don't have anyone to support me financially. I have to do it myself. So I think that's the main thing is just like because I have to, I will find a way. But I think more than that, it's just my passion for what I do. Like knowing that I want to do something and doing hackathon stuff, doing all this other stuff is a part of that. And doing what I really want to, which is like realistically just like helping people, like helping people who are getting started in their careers, getting to know different people in the tech sphere, stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's mainly how I've gone about it. Is there a way we can add projects from hackathons to resumes? Is it recommended or no? Absolutely, I would definitely recommend adding projects from your hackathons to resumes. I mean, I wouldn't have only hackathon projects. I would have other stuff too, like other like experience that you have. But I would definitely add projects just because they're a really good way of showing that you have initiative when it comes to learning. You're quick to pick up on things. You can go from an idea to a prototype in 24 to 48 hours, which is really valuable to a company. So yeah, I think it's absolutely something you should put on your resume. It's something I put on my resume. So yeah, I think it's something you definitely can. Let's see. All right. Yeah, I think that's all the questions in chat for now. Anyone got anything else they want to ask? I'm gonna be here till like 10 p.m. So yeah, I mean I can do pretty much anything. I remember one thing I did because we finished early for my Intro to Flutter workshop was I actually played some Pokemon because I play some competitive Pokemon. So, I mean, realistically, I could do that if I want, but I'd much rather answer y'all's question because I want to be a good resource and help out people. Yeah. Let's see. How much did you know before your first couple of hackathons? Nothing. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I knew nothing. Like, so I could actually just say how I got started with all this. So, I originally got started with like programming in general and like game development. So I always really liked gaming. So I kind of started with like Game Maker and Unity and like making games. And then from that, I joined the TSA at my school. So it's like the Technology Student Association. It was in high school. So it's like engineering competitions. So this was really, really cool, and I kind of grew my interest from there. But the CS department at my school was like not big at all. We had like 2 CS classes. So in my high school, I created a programming club, and when I was researching different different projects that or I was researching different activities we could do for like club activities, and hackathons came up. So before then, I had some experience with programming, but like not very much outside of game programming. Like before then, I had never really used Python even. And my first project I worked on, I actually won first place in machine learning, which I did not work on the machine learning component for that project at all. It was my teammate. But it was a really good experience, like even outside of like the technical aspect. Like I think if on your first hackathon you made a project and you submitted a project, I think that is something you should be proud of because that's something a lot of people don't do. And I think it's something I wouldn't have done differently if I didn't have like a pretty good team. Just because like it's a hard thing, especially when you're not used to like competing and stuff. But yeah, I definitely didn't know much at all. I kind of went from there because I kind of got interested in machine learning from that. I was interested in learning more about that, and yeah, now I am where I am today. I love Pokemon Showdown. Yeah, I do too. I especially love. So actually. So I usually like playing the older tiers of Pokemon. So for those who don't play Pokemon, there's like the newest generation of games. But then there's the older generations, so like Game Boy games. Like they have their own competitive communities, and I usually like those just because the metas are very different, and I just kind of like them. But one strategy I like in particular is Copycat Lucario. So this is a bit of a tangent, but I like the strategy a lot because basically there's things in Pokemon called entry hazards. So there are moves called like stealth rocks or spikes, which basically injure your opponent's Pokemon when they switch in. And so there are moves that your opponent can use called Roar or Whirlwind, etc., that switch your opponent's Pokemon out. Now, if you have a really fast Pokemon with Roar or Whirlwind, like what are you going to do? If they're faster than you, are they just going to keep switching out? No, because Roar is always programmed to go last because it has negative priority, meaning it goes last in the turn most times. But what Copycat Lucario does is because it has a move Copycat, which just copies the opponent's move or the last move used in battle, if the opponent uses Roar and they roar in your Lucario, well, one, your Lucario is going to be fast, but also if you use Copycat, you can copy their Roar, but when you use Copycat does not have negative priority, so it isn't affected by that. So you can basically use Roar while also outspeeding your opponent, so you can basically keep switching your opponent's Pokemon in constantly, and it's really toxic and fun. So that was just a quick tangent. All right. How did you fit projects on your resume? If you don't mind, can we see your resume or any other that looks similar? I can show you mine. Let me just pull it up. Dang, that's a nasty Pokemon chat. Oh yeah, it is. There are lots of nasty Pokemon chats. There's one YouTuber I like. He's called Big Yellow. He's actually done a lot of good videos on like niche Pokemon strats, which I find really fun. Yeah, if you didn't believe me when I said like I can answer any and all questions you all have, like I'll just show you my resume right now. Like I don't really care. So like this is my resume right now. Like it's structured like this, pretty consistent with like most people. I'll block out my phone number and whatnot, but basically it's structured like this. I kind of give the basics of my tech stack. So if a recruiter is spending 6 seconds learning, like wanting to get information about me, I first give them all like the programming information so they can see like, okay, this person has experience with these technologies. Like I want to continue reading this, basically, because otherwise they're just gonna skip down to where that information is, and I don't want them to skip this. I also have a little section on like stuff I'm interested in learning, just because I like, I think it's important for a lot of companies is like they want their new hires to be very learning oriented. For like my General Mills internship, like mentioning that I worked on an app with a large number of users, like the technologies I used, stuff like that. I usually have 2 to 3 bullet points per thing, nothing more. I usually don't need any more. But yeah, like with my experience as a coach, like like I've represented MLH, I've done like tech talks and things like that, like live workshops. I also do like I kind of wanted to mention like the diversity initiatives, which people seem to like. I also just put inventor because technically that's what it is. So all like the different stuff that I've had to look into, and with like researching that. And yeah, and this is actually the Hackathon project I spoke about a while ago. And yeah, some of the different educational stuff I've done. So yeah, like that's my personal resume. So that's generally what that looks like. This is my first event. Never attended any hackathon. Now I need to start doing this regularly. I mean, yeah, I think they're completely fun, or like they're really fun. Like, if you've never attended a hackathon before, or like haven't really been in that sphere, I'd recommend going to mlh.io. So when you go to the MLH website, you can go to events and 2023 season hackathons, and it has all the different hackathons for the season. And there's a lot of hackathons from like individual organizers from like universities, but then MLH has hackathons every weekend, and that's really cool because no matter when you are, you don't have to go in person for hackathon. There's like digital hackathons virtually over the weekend, like every weekend, which is really cool. And also it's we also have 2 hackathons. So we have one for the US and EU time zones, and one for the Asia and Pacific time zones. So we are doing that now just because like it's really annoying if you're in like India and you have to like wake up super early because a time zone's in America for a hackathon. Like we now have an option for both time zones, so that's something I think is really cool because now you have like an option every weekend to attend a hackathon. And then VT Hacks, if you're interested in attending, I'm not sure if you're close to Virginia Tech, but VT Hacks is going to be this November, so also attend that if you're interested. So did you get involved with hackathons through your club? Yep, I answered that. Hope to see you at future events. Hope to see you too. I'm actually going to be coaching at. The events I know I'm doing in the near future now are Hack U in BC and Hack U Iowa. Those are the events I know that I'm doing in the near future. So if you're going to those events, I'll be there. Yeah, and I mean that's completely fine. Like honestly, like you don't always need to do a project. like just attending the workshops and stuff, like that's also like really valuable stuff. So yeah, I think that's also a really good use of that time. Nice. So, what other questions do y'all have? Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm done to show you anything. Like I literally just showed you my resume, so like, no holds barred. Like, ask whatever you want. Yeah. Yep. Thank you. We're actually working on revamping that UI because we have a lot of people on our web development team this year. So yeah, we're actually going to be updating it this year. How much work did you put into your LinkedIn? One question was, do you have a portfolio website? I mean, I never really use it, honestly. I just kind of have it just so people can view stuff there. Yeah, I mean, I have one. I haven't updated it in a while. I think I really need to, but yeah, I do have one. In terms of like LinkedIn, like I don't think I put like a ton of work into my LinkedIn. I don't think there's like a huge need to, but like realistically, like I like to post sometimes just to keep up engagement. Like I posted with that like Wheaties box that I had here. But yeah, I think that's like something I really like doing just to like keep up like my social profile, one as a coach, but also like and just in general, it's good to like keep up a social media like persona, especially because like if I'm like a coach, I'm online all the time. Yeah. How do you create your resume, from scratch or from website template? Let me see if I can find it actually. I used a template that I found. I think this is the one I used. So I found a Reddit post that I liked. So I used the resume template they had as a base, and then I just like added onto it. It's one I really like. You can literally just find it. Like I looked up Reddit recruiter resume template. So if you look that up, you'll find it. But yeah, that's the one that I used. At least that I remember I used. Did you have a mentor? No. I mean, honestly, not really. Um, I mean, I think everyone has a mentor in some way, whether it's like your superiors at your workplace or stuff like that. So I think through that, like, yeah, I have like people at MLH who like have given me a lot of great advice, and I've been really good in like helping me learn. But like a specific mentor, like no one specifically. Yeah. Any other questions y'all have? Yeah, I mean, I guess if no one has any immediate questions, I can kind of come back to that kind of question I posed to you all earlier. Like, is there anything that you're like particularly stressed, like right now? Is there anything that you're stressed about when it comes to like internships, like jobs, like you know, finding a job, like stuff like that. Like, let me know, because I love to hear about, like, what y'all are, like, like stressed about, so I can kind of comment on that. What are some cool gadgets slash apps for productivity that you use? I mean, I don't think there's anything in particular that I use. I really just use like Google Calendar, like, because I know I have the attention span of a squirrel sometimes, or the memory of a squirrel sometimes. It's like unless I make a note about something, I might just forget it. So I usually make like a bunch of tasks for one day about like, okay, post about this thing, or finish doing this thing, or work on these things, stuff like that. That's just like a general guideline, and I think having the ability to like check off those things kind of helps me get a sense of completion from like doing my work. And yeah, that's really all I use in terms of like productivity. Someone once recommended learning in public good. How to do that? I'm not entirely sure what you mean by learning in public good, but I think kind of related to that, one thing I think is really cool is just like learning through projects, right? So like project-based learning as opposed to just like walking through a guide or reading through a textbook, as a lot of you could probably agree with. So like instead of like reading a textbook on game development, like creating a game you're interested in, because like having an idea for a game and then just creating it and learning everything from that. I think that's really cool. It's just like learning by something you actually want to make. So for example, I was trying to learn, back when I was first getting into programming, I learned about Unreal Engine. So I first actually learned about Unreal Engine not through like, just looking through the documentation. I just wanted to create a like a paintball style game. So kind of like a shooter, but it was in school, so I had to make it friendly. So it was like paintball, where there's like different weapons, like a paint hose and that kind of thing. So that was really cool because I thought it was interesting, for one, just like getting paint physics to work. But also I like learned a lot about Unity and like the blueprint functionality and all that. So yeah, that's definitely what I would recommend doing that. How do you time your internship search, since they all move at different paces and recruiters reaching out, I guess? I mean, realistically, only you personally would know your schedule, but realistically, I try to set aside some time like each week to look at new opportunities, because, there are opportunities going up every few weeks that, weren't there before. So like a new company is starting their recruitment at different times. So yeah, I would just schedule like a time each week to kind of go through some companies and, submit your application. Or at least if you're not fully submitting your application, like create a list of companies that you want to submit applications for. So then when you have the time to do that, you know what companies you want to move with. And that's kind of why I said like the most important part of like starting your job search is having a really good like resume as foundation, is because realistically, like you can have like a template for like I don't know, like a generic like thing that you say in like, a lot of companies have this thing about like, oh, why do you want to work here, like in their like job applications. Like having like a generic template you can kind of use as a base, then customize to that company. But yeah, having a good foundational resume is really important. So yeah, I just recommend setting aside time in that way. Tell us about your challenges coming from a low-income household. What would you think would have helped you out the most had it been available when you were getting started programming? Honestly, the biggest thing I would say is people. Just because I was personally kind of sheltered as a kid. Like, I didn't have too many friends, and I wasn't really encouraged to. So I think honestly, just having other people who are interested in tech is like the biggest thing for me. Because realistically, like part of the reason I got into tech was because, like, as someone who didn't have access to a lot of the stuff, like the internet is such a vast space, so I could learn like so many different things, and programming, like a lot of it was free online. Like there's so many open source projects and things like that. So it's something that really got me into it. But realistically, I think like this, like what we're doing right now, which is like me being on stream for MLH, like I think that's the biggest thing, is just having someone I could talk to, ask questions to, ask real questions to. So not just like generic stuff, like those hard questions, and someone being able to answer them. And also just like friends. So just like having other people who are interested in tech to just like talk to and get to know. Yeah, I think those are the biggest things that would have helped me out. What year do you recommend undergrads to find/get an internship? I mean, realistically, you can always find an internship, or you can always be on the hunt for them. Like, I remember in my freshman year, like, I went to my university's job fair, and a lot of the companies, like, they really liked my experience and everything. Like, I think it was, like, Geico or something. Like, I went to this stand, and she was like, wow, you have all the skills we're looking for. I really like your experience. You would be a great fit. And then she said, oh, what year are you? And I said, oh, I'm a freshman. And she said, oh, we're only recruiting for juniors. Which was really funny because she literally just said I'd be a perfect fit for that position. But because they're only looking for juniors, I guess I wasn't good enough. So, yeah, that's a shame. But there are like some programs specifically for like freshmen that I think is really cool. So you can always do something, whether it's like an internship or it's something else, like just researching, like with a research group at your university. But realistically, I don't think there's any like specific timeline you can give. Like you can get that one with any of your 4 years. Like I know people who are successful who have gotten internships in their freshman year, and I know people who are successful who got internships their senior year. So yeah, I mean, I think it really just depends on you and what you want to do. All right, any questions y'all have? I suppose while we're getting questions in the chat, I can show one thing that I've been working on in terms of Pokemon, just because I'm not sure what else to show. I've been working on creating a team. So like one Pokemon I think is really interesting. So this format I'm making this team for is Ubers. So this is essentially where all like the legendary Pokemon go. They're all in this format. So I'm trying to create a team with Trick Room Palkia. So what Trick Room does is essentially switches the turn order. So basically, the fast Pokemon go last, the slow Pokemon go first, and it does that for 5 turns. So I think that's really cool, just because there are a lot of fast threats in Ubers, and I think it's a really cool thing that not a lot of people have counterplay to outside of like maybe priority moves. So I've been trying to create a team around Trick Room Palkia. I have Kyogre. I might switch out Groudon because it might not be entirely necessary. I have Empoleon here, which might seem weird, but I kind of like it because it has a quad resist to like ice, and it resists dragon, which not a lot of water types can say. And yeah, I think generally it's good for just like switching in on one attack and then just dishing out good damage. I may actually switch it with a Scarf or switch it out entirely, but I've just been messing around with it. So yeah, I'm still going to be here for a little while longer. So if y'all have questions about me, my internship, my work as a coach, anything, just say them in chat. Yeah, I guess I also want to just learn about more people in chat, like what they're doing. So like, is there anything y'all are like looking forward to, like in the coming fall and spring? Like, whether it's like job related or just like personally, like, is there anything that you're looking forward to doing? You know, like doing any particular hackathons or anything like that? All right. I mean, if no one has any questions, I may end the stream early. But I mean, I'm down to stick around a while longer. So if anyone has questions, feel free to post them. Just trying to think what else to talk about. As far as the internship goes, stuff I did there outside of my job was I just got to explore the city, which was really cool. I remember went to mini Haha Falls with a friend, and it was really nice. Seeing the huge waterfall. Also just visiting some of the restaurants. They have, I guess Minnesota is famous for these things called Juicy Lucy's, which they're basically burgers with cheese on the inside, which sounds like it was good, but yeah, it was kind of what I expected. But it was interesting. Working in a non-IT job and learning tech for the last 3 months and hope to start a career in it. I think that's great, honestly. I think regardless of your background, I think anyone can kind of get started in tech. There's so many resources available. So if you want to, I think that's definitely possible. And the CEO of MLH Swift, he literally started out as a lawyer. So he wasn't like a software developer starting out or anything. He was going to be a lawyer. So if he's any example, you definitely don't have to be in a tech job in order to get into it. What switches those? I think if you're referring to my keyboard here, I think these are blue switches. I boost you and I love something we call typing. Yep, I love them too. Make me feel like I'm typing on a typewriter. After now, thanks for sharing your experiences with us. Hey, thank you to everyone who's coming here. This is really a chill stream, so I get to just talk about the stuff and all what everything I do. But it's also really cool just hearing about you all, stuff that you're trying to go do. So yeah, I think that's really cool, and thanks for coming. Do you have any tips for talking during an interview? Like about yourself. Oh, talking about yourself during an interview. I think the biggest thing is just thinking about specific experiences that kind of relate to either what the question is asking or something that kind of connects back to the core values of the company. So, for example, like, I don't know, with General Mills, for example, like when I looked it up earlier, like one of their mission statements were about like sustainability of like food and stuff. So if they asked me about like some of my technical experiences, I might mention like, that I created this hackathon project that recommended meals, but did so with sustainability in mind, recommending ingredients that were expiring soon and showing you how to properly dispose of them in an eco-friendly way. Like I would kind of say something like that, just because it answers the question, but also touches on points like with the overall goal of the company. But there's also just like general stuff, like I think just saying things like, like things that you're passionate about, whether it's like technical or not. Like I'm passionate about like diversity and inclusion, and like lifting up the people from those communities. So that's something I would either just say or would say like from what I've done. So like I worked with Fiona Whittington. If you haven't heard of her, she's amazing. She's the leader of Tech Together, and she recently joined MLH. So it's really cool working with her. And I actually worked before the merge with Tech Together a lot. So there are women and non-binary centered hackathon series. So yeah, I would kind of mention like how I like doing that in my free time. Yep, I think that's really good. This is an anecdote from Ryan from MLH, if you've heard of him. But he was saying to us during the MLH summit, which it was right after Hackcon. It's basically a summit with all the MLHers where we can basically just chill and get to know each other, and like celebrate MLH's accomplishments. And so he was saying like how when he first started, like how he kind of got used to like speaking in front of large crowds was like practicing the MLH opening ceremony in the shower. And so his roommates actually told him that they think they could do the opening ceremony themselves just because they've heard it so much, because he said it in the shower all the time. So yeah, it's kind of a funny anecdote. Yeah, practice definitely is important. Yep, thanks. How was your first impression during the first day of the internship? I think it was pretty good. Like I said, it was mostly orientation stuff. I think the main thing I really liked was just the scale of like a world headquarters, because I hadn't really seen one before, especially for a company as big as General Mills is. But yeah, it was really cool. Got to eat some of my food and swag, but also just got to hear from a lot of cool people, meet my team. Yeah, I think it was pretty good. Any other questions? We have like 10 more minutes here. So after 10 minutes, I'll be getting off. But yeah, if anyone has any last questions or anything like that, feel free to post them in chat. Can you show something cool you've made that you'd like to show off? Let's see, something cool I've made. I mean, it's not on this computer, but one thing I made during my like I mentioned before, when I was doing like high school like engineering competitions and stuff, one of the categories was game development. So I actually created like a Mega Man clone, like entirely from scratch. So that was really cool. I don't have it on this computer; it's been like years. But that's something that was really cool. Let's see. Oh, thank you for letting me know. Yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I might just take a look at that, honestly. Okay, well, one of the MLHs is definitely going to be looking at that, because I know there's some that are like active, but yep, thanks for pointing that out. Polar Void, yeah, someone will definitely get to you on that. How do you come up with projects to do, like for hackathons or for personal projects? That's a very good question. I think the main thing for me is just like thinking about a need I have in my personal life that I would want fulfilled, or if it's like more of, if I want to tackle more of like a social issue, I try to just look up existing software that kind of tackles a specific issue. So for example, if the issue I want to tackle is like women's safety, for example, because like, you know, a lot of women are unsafe like on dates, for things like that. So like sometimes people have created like apps and software to kind of help with that, or like encourage their safety. So kind of seeing what is currently out there and what it isn't doing that you think would be cool if it did. Even stuff like that, like having like one twist on an existing idea, like I think is a really good thing really good way to start. Outside of that, if you like know a particular tech stack you're interested in working with, so for example, if you know you want to use like machine learning or something like that, like you can kind of use that as a base. But realistically, if you're trying to get like an idea, I would try to start with a project or problem or a topic that you have a personal connection to, because I've judged hundreds of hackathon projects. I can tell you the ones that always kind of went out for me and the ones that always catch my attention as a judge are the ones that have personal stories behind them, or that the person has like it kind of shows through the projects that they like know the problem that they're making it for that specifically. So they show like a depth of understanding of the topic. Stuff like that is what I would recommend. I started programming with games too. Have you made many? I've made some. I mean, I haven't really made any recently, but back when I was in high school, I made, like I said, I made that Mega Man clone. I made a platformer. I made that paintball game when I was trying to learn Unreal Engine 4. Yeah. I also made this game called Startery. It was with a team but it's basically like an archery kind of game that was in VR. So that was really cool. And another game I kind of made during my own time was a kind of a chemistry game. It was very basic. I didn't get as far with it as I would have liked to, but it was a chemistry game where like it was in VR, and so like you could mix together different chemicals. It's like if you mix one bottle with one label with another, and you mix them, like a reaction would happen. So it kind of was teaching people about reactions, but also it was interesting because it was in VR. So yeah, this is the kind of stuff I've worked on in terms of like game development. All right, got like 5 or 6 minutes left for the stream. So, any and all questions? If you have any, feel free to post them in chat. It's now or never. Do you play VR? I don't really play VR personally just because I don't have a headset. I think the only time I've really played with VR, like personally, is one time during an event we had like an Oculus Rift, and I played some Beat Saber with some friends. And I played some VR chat, which it got kind of weird because it was during that whole like Ugandan knuckle phase, which was really like everyone in VR chat was like some form of Uganda knuckles. So that was very interesting. Yeah, other than that, not really, because I don't own like a headset personally. But I remember at VT Hacks last year, we did have one. Not sure if this was answered yet, but what was your favorite hackathon you've ever been to? No one's actually asked that yet. I mean, I could be cheeky and just say VT Hacks, but I think that's a bit unfair, just because I'm the director of that one. In terms of the ones I've attended, I'd say there's two kinds of hackathons that were really cool. One was my very first hackathon, just because the food catering was really good. Like they had like Chick-fil-A there and some other stuff. But it was also very small. Like it was at George Washington University. It was called Hackathon. It was a Smart Cities hackathon, but it was very small, so it was very close knit. Like I got to very closely interact with the other hackers and everything, so that was really cool. Other than that, Hack Duke was pretty good. Yeah, I think this was before I was an organizer of VTX, but I attended VTX as a hacker in my freshman year. I actually ended up winning best ML hack there, but that was really cool just because it was like an in-person hackathon at my university, and I was like a freshman, and it was really fun. And yeah, and we're gonna be back in person this year, November 11th to 13th. So that's really exciting. Which hackathon gives it the most swag? The most swag? I guess it's subjective because I think that's an interesting question just because you have to think like you could have a hackathon that gives like a lot of swag, but it's like not very good swag. So you know like those cheap pens or like those like plastic cups no one's ever gonna use, or, like those like blue rubber balls which are like okay, but you're never gonna use it. I'd rather have a hackathon that's like has less swag, but it's of higher quality individually. So if it's a pen like a higher quality like metal pen that's like something I would actually want to use, or like I don't know something like cooler. That's what I'm planning for VTX. And actually, I mean, keep posting your questions in chat. But if you have ideas for swag that you think would be cool to get at a hackathon, like feel free to post it in chat because I'm the director of VTX. And one thing I've been thinking about for our 10th anniversary is what's the coolest swag we can get. And I want to think of like unique stuff. Like unique and cool stuff that's like decent quality that we can make that's branded with the VTX logo. So yeah, if you have ideas on that, feel free to post in chat. But yeah, I mean, in terms of which hackathon gives out the most, hopefully VT Hacks, because I think that'd be nice if we did. What's the best piece of swag you've received? Um, I mean, this is cheating, but for anyone who wasn't here before, because I know new people have joined, this isn't Hackathon Swag, but it's from General Mills. At the end of my internship, I got a Wheaties box with my face printed on it as the nutrition facts and everything. Some of you might have already seen this because I showed it earlier on, but a lot of you here are new. But yeah, I got this. It has like an acrylic case to it. It's really cool. I'm actually really glad I got this for free because that's like $100 if I like actually tried to buy this myself. So I'm glad it was free. Yeah, in terms of like hackathon swag, I'd say the best is either like a t-shirt because that's pretty much my entire wardrobe now is all hackathon t-shirts. So I'd say like a t-shirt. I remember I went to Hoya Hacks one year, and they had these shirts that were like black, but they were like textured, like with little rainbow like dots on them. That was really cool. So I'd say something like that. Classic flash drive, nice. Nice, joining from Pakistan. Yep. Was a multi-charger keychain and portable charger. Yep. Oh yeah. The multi-charger keychains are really useful just because like it's something I'm actually going to use, which I really like. And actually, I can show you something real quick. So, I mean, I guess this counts, but I did, like, this is a piece of swag that I made for VTX. It's for VTX 9. It's a little charm for my keys. Yeah. So, that's something I think is cool just because, I mean, my keys are something I'm always going to be using, and I think it's cool just to kind of be reminded of that. Enamel pins. What are enamel pins? Oh, okay, they're like these. Okay. Yeah, those could be cool. A USB hub. Yeah, I think that could be cool. You know, I actually have, so like I mentioned that I have some Yu-Gi-Oh stuff right here because I play Yu-Gi-Oh! And one thing I have here are some Yu-Gi-Oh dice. So I have these two right here of Junk Synchron and Elemental Hero Neos. So I was thinking, what if I have dice, but they're VT Hacks branded dice? That's something I literally just came up with, but I think it could be cool. A rubber ducky. I actually, I was thinking of doing that last year, just because like I think it'd be an interesting thing. I think I ended up not deciding on it just because, I mean, a rubber ducky is not something anyone's realistically going to use super often, but I think it was a cool idea, and I did consider it for last year. All right, it's almost time for the end of the stream. So does anyone have any last questions? Yep, no problem. Thanks everyone for coming. It's been really fun. It's like talking with y'all, getting to know you all. Yeah, it's been really cool. And you know, if you want to hear from me, like, feel free to like message about it in Discord, and I'll try to get to you. But yeah, it's been really fun. All right. Yeah. Again, thanks so much for coming, and yeah, good luck with the rest of Global Hack Week.